Welcome back, everybody. This is Mustafa Ahmed. So today I have a really cool video that I want to share with you guys, and I really want to comment because this video is by a very well-known scholar named Yasir Qadhi, and I love Yasir Qadhi. Yasir Qadhi, he's a great scholar. He makes the deen and the religion very easy for us normal Muslims to really understand and go forward and really learn. So Yasir Qadhi, he talks about this very interesting hadith about the end times and the future, and I want to share some light because again, whenever we're talking about eschatology stuff, it is a very cryptic and puzzling puzzle, pretty much you would say, and it's a mystery. And how do we connect certain pieces together? And until certain events start unfolding, then you kind of see how all the puzzle pieces connect, right? Think about like the mosaic piece, and we all have a little piece, right, with the hadith, the Quran, and all this information. But how do we really paint a broader picture to explain what events are going to start coming and how are they going to start unfolding, right? And the biggest thing is we have two to three main problems. The first one is that one, that we know that all the hadith are not true. Some hadith are weak, and some hadith are also fabricated, especially towards the end time stuff, right? So that's the issue. Number two, we don't know the chronology of certain things, and we as Muslims affirm if the Prophet ﷺ did say them, then it has to happen, right? There are weak hadiths that do unfold, and then we know, okay, this is true just because we've seen it unfold, right? And then the third one is, so we said the first one was their fabricated hadiths. The second one was if it is true, if the Prophet really did say that, it has to come true. And the third aspect is we don't know the chronology, right? So we don't know which one is coming first, which one's coming second, unless the hadith specifically states these are the steps, right, that is going to unfold. So we have these three problems that we need a piece, and there's hundreds of hadiths about end time stuff, and there are on top of it, I would say the fourth layer of complexity is that it also is cryptic, right? So sometimes it's not like X, Y, and Z is gonna happen, right? It is like it's you would say it's a cryptic puzzle piece until certain things unfold. So what I'm trying to say is that, for example, we could have never imagined the amount of technology that we have today, right? So if you're talking about 1400 years ago when the Prophet ﷺ says certain events are gonna happen, like the barefoot Bedouins competing with each other to build tall skyscrapers, nobody really understood what that really meant until now in our generation. We understand and we actually see it, but trying to explain a certain concept of a certain type of technology that did not even unfold yet, it's really hard to believe and hard to even point a picture and really clarify exactly what's happening. So I'm gonna stop speaking for now. I really want to show you guys this video. In this video, it's by Yasir Qadhi, and I'm gonna paint a bigger picture after you guys watch the video. So please pay attention, and let me explain to you guys after the video how everything kind of pieces together in the future. Okay, so Bismillah.
Now there's one other hadith which is also cryptic. It is also cryptic, and it is also reported in Sahih Muslim. And we do not know whether this is related to the Mahdi or not. We do not know. But it is my assumption, and Allah knows best, that it is related to the Mahdi, and this is also the ijtihad of many ulama, that this hadith is related to the Mahdi. And it's a long hadith, and it was this hadith that caused ISIS to do some of what it did as well. And this hadith is authentic. And the hadith goes as follows. Judgment will not happen until the Romans encamp at a land called Dabiq, which is a small village in Syria. Okay? Until the Romans camp at a land called Dabiq. And an army will come from Medina, who are the best of the people in the earth. And they will face this army from Rome in the village of Dabiq. Now pause here. Right here, ISIS narrative crumbles. Where did the army of ISIS come from? Not from Medina. You understand? You cannot take one portion, another portion, and enact your own hadith. ISIS's army did not come from Medina. The majority of them, in fact, came from Belgium and France. Around 100 from America. You know, Minnesota had 20 or 30. This is their army. Each one thinking we're going to reestablish the Khilafah by executing hostages. And well, I mean, again, where do they, this is what happens when you have a crazed understanding of the religion. You don't understand right from wrong, and you end up doing more wrong than good. And our Prophet warned us about these fanatics, and maybe one day, inshallah, give a khutbah or a lecture about the characteristics of the Kharijites. Because this group is exactly Kharijite. This group is exactly that fundamentalist group. They think they are doing good, and they end up doing more harm than good. But this hadith mentions what? It mentions Dabiq, and it mentions the great Armageddon, and then the hadith goes on. I'm not going to go into all of it. It basically mentions until this army will then go towards Constantinople and conquer Constantinople. Now, this hadith is very problematic for all commentators of our times. Nobody has a clear understanding of what this hadith means. And how can we? Because what is Constantinople? Istanbul. What does it mean they're going to conquer Constantinople? Allahu A'lam. Does it mean that it will go back into non-Muslim hands? Does it mean that Allahu A'lam? What does it mean? We have no idea. But this hadith mentions that that army, which is going from Medina, which army is leaving from Medina towards the end of times? Is the army of the Mahdi. It will fight the Armageddon. It will be successful. It will continue fighting until finally it will conquer Qistantiniya, which is Constantinople. So we have, and this is in Sahih Muslim, that's authentic. And the other hadith, Jerusalem, which is in Tirmidhi, which is not authentic. Put together, it appears we form some type of narrative. The army of the Mahdi will unify the Muslim world. It appears. We can make a tentative hypothesis. It's tentative, it's not explicit. The army of the Mahdi will unify the Muslim world, and there shall be peace and justice until Dajjal comes. And when Dajjal comes, once again there will be turmoil, and then Isa will come, once again there will be peace, and then Ya'juj and Ma'juj. So we're going to talk about this towards the end of times. You guys remember your sine wave from university, right? Remember your sine wave? Towards the end of times, the sine wave goes higher and lower and higher and lower. This is what's going to happen. That from bad to worse to better to worse to even better to worse, this is what's going to happen. Very quickly, dramatic shifts. This is what we see in this hadith, right? So the Mahdi, Dajjal, Isa, they're all going to be doing these things. And basically the hadith mentioned all of these characteristics of the Mahdi, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Now, I mentioned around a dozen in the last 40 minutes a hadith of the Mahdi and some of the characteristics of the Mahdi. And as I told you before, there are over 30 hadith about the Mahdi, narrated by over 30 Sahaba. Because of this, it has been a standard feature of mainstream Sunni Islam to accept the concept of the Mahdi. And there's a long list of our classical ulama, Al-Hasan al-Basri, Mujahid ibn Jabr, many of the classical ulama, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, others, they talked about the Mahdi. And there were books written by our Sunni scholars, such as Nu'aym ibn Hammad, one of the great scholars of hadith. He wrote a book called the Book of Mahdi. Ibn Kathir, the famous Mufassir, he wrote a book called the Book of Mahdi. As-Suyuti, our great scholar, also wrote a book about the hadith of the Mahdi. So, the claim that some misguided Sunnis make, oh, we Sunnis don't believe in the Mahdi, this person doesn't know Sunni history. The concept of the Mahdi comes from Sunni Islam. Other groups took it and distorted it, and converted it, and scrambled it, and fried it, and presented it different than what is found in the hadith. In these ahadith, did we ever come across any narration that says that the Mahdi will fly in the air? The Mahdi will walk on water? The Mahdi will know ilm al-ghayb? The Mahdi will control the creation? The Mahdi will snap his fingers and mount it? No! The Mahdi is not supernatural. The Mahdi is not Superman flying around in the air. The Mahdi is a mortal made of flesh and blood, but his piety will unite the ummah. That's all that it is. The Mahdi is not superhuman. There are no characteristics of the Mahdi that we're scratching our heads. It's only that he's a unifying figure, a righteous man from the descendants of Hassan radiallahu anhu, who will unite the Muslim ummah, and that's it. Now, the concept of the Mahdi has been misused and abused for the last 14 centuries. Not just by ISIS, not just by Juhayman in 1979. From the beginning of times, there were people who took this concept and they wanted to pretend they are the Mahdi. Some of them were politically successful, but religiously they were not. Of them is the Abbasids. The Abbasids, they thought they will enact the hadith of the Mahdi, and that's why they started their armies in Khurasan, and they took as their banners the black flag. And they had this theology of the Mahdi. But once they got into power and they realized they're not the Mahdi, khalas, they went their way and they abandoned their sectarianism and they continued.
Assalamu alaikum. 10 million Afghans are on the brink of starvation.
Okay. So, pretty much, so you guys saw Yasir Qadhi give his beautiful interpretation of how he pieces the end time stuff together. And it really is something very special, because to actually be able to piece the hadith of end time eschatology, it's very, very complicated. And I think Yasir Qadhi did an amazing job trying to put one and two together. So what did he really say that really stands out? He says that the Mahdi, right, is going to come at the time when there's great trials and tribulation. And they're going to come from Medina, where he's going to send down an army to go capture Constantinople. So this is problematic now, because Constantinople, the land of Turkey, is in the hands of the Muslims. So how does this hadith make any sense? A lot of scholars, or not scholars, I would say a lot of people who want to put everything together and want to paint a picture now, they say this can't be true, right? Well, this happened before when Istanbul was not in the hands of the Muslims, and then eventually became in the hands of Muslims. So what I'm going to say is very special, so I really want everybody to pay attention. There is a man named Muhammad Qasim bin Abdul Karim. He has a dream given to him where the Prophet ﷺ comes to him, and he explained a couple things that are going to happen. And the Prophet ﷺ asked him to spread this information to the Muslim Ummah. Therefore, this is a news for us Muslims to pay attention. And his dream plus the hadiths, put one and one together, you paint a bigger picture. He states that there are three castles of Islam: Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan. The first two castles, Turkey and Saudi Arabia, fall, right? Therefore, it's desolated. All the Muslims are left only in Pakistan. Now, I'm going to explain this later in another video. I don't have the time for it right now. But Pakistan essentially will become the last castle of Islam, according to the dreams. And that's when the Muslims will fight Ghazwat Hind, which is also a very, very important battle towards the end of times, which a lot of scholars thought already happened, but did not happen yet, because this hadith is mixed with the coming of Isa ibn Maryam, which also has to happen in the future. Therefore, this dream obviously makes sense. Following it, that since Turkey and Saudi Arabia fell, furthermore, the dream continues and says that the Muslims from Pakistan will start regaining lands that were once belonging to the Muslims. So, for example, all of Saudi Arabia, all of the Hijaz regions, all of Egypt, Sudan, all these countries that were destroyed around the greater Israel, what they would call it, the Muslims will start conquering it. So much so then eventually the Muslims will send an army from Medina to go recapture Constantinople. And there you have the second dream of that once the Muslims enter Constantinople, now it states that the Dajjal will come. So therefore, this also goes very, very well with the hadith that the Muslims, once they go and they take over Constantinople, which is also the battle of 80 banners. That's where you have 80 banners will go against the Muslims. And this is the battle where the Prophet said that 1/3 of the army would run away and Allah will never forgive their repentance. 1/3 of the army will die and they will be the best of shuhada that day. And 1/3 of the army will win. And however, once they win, there is no beauty of collecting any ghanima, any war booty, because there is no inheritance. Almost the attrition rate was so high. There's no point of having anything after that. Then there will be a cry saying that the Dajjal has come out. That's when the Mahdi will send 12 riders, horse riders. They would be the best horse riders on that day. And the hadith continues by saying that the Prophet knows who their fathers are and knows who they are. And these would be the best riders on that day. They will go to find out if this news is true, and it will come back not true. However, right following after that, the Dajjal does come out. So they have an understanding that the Dajjal is about to start coming out, but they just don't know where. And they understand that the Dajjal will also come out from Syria, from around Syria, right? The hadith are very vague on this, but it states that he will come out from Syria. So therefore, after that battle, after the Muslims take over the city of Constantinople, then the coming of the Dajjal will happen. So this video is mainly to point a bigger, broader picture, mainly to decipher the codes of end-time eschatology. There's a lot to say. This takes years of studying, years of research, years of understanding. However, with all those years of studying and understanding those end-time stuff, keep in mind we are given something very special too. That Allah did not leave us in a time of great trials and tribulation, right? It's just those who are really looking will find the answers. So I urge every Muslim person to start looking and paying attention to Muhammad Qasim bin Abdul Karim's dreams, because they are glad tidings for us in the times when we really do need it, right? So if everyone's going to go out and do their own thing and live their life without the worry of how do I keep my Islam protected for myself, and then how do I continue spreading it to the next generation, because if the trials and tribulations so much so that the only thing left is going to be Allah for the next coming generations. And how sad would that be if to leave our children with no Quran, no understanding of how to pray, who their God is, right? And the only thing left that they know is that I used to hear my parents say Allah, right? So therefore, yes, it's important that we make sure that we take care of our own religion, our own deen, because we're going to be accountable for it. But at the end of the day, how do we continue spreading this religion to the next coming generations? Because in the end of the day, if we don't carry the mantle and we drop it in our generation, then it won't go any forward. It won't go forward, right? And we will all be accountable for it on the Day of Judgment, when the last person says, I never heard of anybody called Allah, or who is Allah, right? Then that's going to be on us, because we did not continue to spread this message when we had the opportunity to. So please listen to Muhammad Qasim bin Abdul Karim's dreams. I'm going to put a link in the description. I say that every time. because it's very, very important that people pay attention and recognize what these dreams are talking about. And these dreams are true. Many of them have come true, and they paint a bigger, broader picture about the future. It's not precisely exactly how it's going to happen, because again, dreams are also encrypted. Same thing with the hadith. So it's very important that we decipher. Like, nobody's saying that this person knows ilm al-ghaib, because he really doesn't, because he doesn't know exactly how and when it will unfold and what the dates are. So, but we are still giving almost like a cheat code to move forward, because certain events are going to happen, and if we're not prepared, then it's going to catch us by surprise, and that's going to be rough on a lot of people, right? So please pay attention. Consider subscribing. Again, if I made any mistakes, that's from myself, and if anything I said right, then may Allah reward me. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.